Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt something was wrong? That's what happened to me. At first, it was small, a strange feeling, a tiny delay in my reflection. But then, it started smiling before I did. And that was only the beginning of my nightmare. Lena was a 24-year-old girl living alone in a small apartment in the city. She loved decorating her room and often bought things from thrift stores because they were cheap and unique. One sunny afternoon, she decided to visit a local thrift shop. As she walked around the store, something caught her eye, a tall, antique mirror with a beautiful golden frame. It looked old but elegant, like something from another time. She stared at the mirror for a while. It felt strange, but she couldn't stop looking at it. The design was so pretty, and she thought it would make her bedroom look amazing. She asked the shopkeeper about the price. The man looked at her with an odd expression, as if he wanted to say something, but changed his mind. Finally, he said, "It's very old. Are you sure you want it?" Lena laughed and said yes. She didn't care about old things. In fact, she loved them. The shopkeeper wrapped the mirror and helped her carry it to her car. On the way home, Lena kept glancing at the mirror in the back seat. She felt like the glass was darker than normal, almost like a shadow. But she told herself it was just her imagination. When she reached home, she placed the mirror in her bedroom, right across from her bed. She smiled at her reflection and said, "Perfect." That night, before going to sleep, she looked at the mirror one last time. For a second, she thought she saw her reflection blink a little slower than she did. It made her uncomfortable, but she shrugged it off and went to bed. Lena had no idea that this mirror was not just old. It was hiding something. And that something had been waiting for her for a very long time. The next evening, after a long day at work, Lena came home feeling tired. She changed into her pajamas and went to the bathroom to brush her teeth. As she stood in front of the mirror above the sink, she suddenly remembered the big antique mirror in her bedroom. She smiled to herself, thinking how beautiful it looked in the room. After finishing, she walked back to her bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The room was quiet, except for the faint sound of cars outside. She looked at the mirror across from her. Her reflection stared back at her, just like normal. Lena raised her hand to adjust her hair. For a brief second, she noticed something strange. Her reflection's smile appeared a moment before she even smiled. It was so quick that she almost didn't notice it. Her heart skipped a beat. "What was that?" she whispered to herself. She stood up and walked closer to the mirror, staring into her own eyes. Everything looked fine now. Her reflection copied her perfectly, as it should. She laughed nervously. "I'm tired, that's all," she said out loud, trying to convince herself. It had been a long day. Maybe her mind was just playing tricks on her. Still, something about it bothered her. Why did it feel so real? Why did it seem like the reflection moved first? She shook her head and forced a smile, this time watching the mirror carefully. Her reflection smiled at the same time now. Perfectly normal. Lena turned off the light and crawled into bed. As she lay in the dark, she couldn't stop thinking about what she saw. Her reflection smiling first. It made no sense, but she pushed the thought away and tried to sleep. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The mirror wasn't just showing her image. It was watching her and waiting. The next morning, Lena woke up early. The sun was shining through her curtains, and everything felt normal. She got out of bed, stretched, and walked to her dressing table. She needed to get ready for work. As she sat down and started fixing her hair, her eyes drifted toward the big antique mirror across the room. She stared at her reflection for a moment, remembering last night. That weird smile. She shook her head, telling herself not to be silly. Lena picked up her hairbrush and began brushing her hair. That's when it happened again. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw it, her reflection smiling before she even moved her lips. Her hand froze midair. This time it wasn't her imagination. The smile appeared on the reflection's face first, and it stayed there for a few seconds before fading away. Lena's heart pounded in her chest. Slowly, she turned her head to look directly into the mirror. Her reflection stared back, perfectly normal now, copying her every move. "No," she whispered. "I saw that. I know I saw that." She stood up and walked closer to the mirror, her fingers lightly touching the cold glass. She looked into her own eyes, searching for something wrong. But everything looked normal. It was just her. Lena stepped back and laughed nervously, trying to calm down. "I'm imagining things. I'm stressed. That's all." But deep inside, she didn't believe that. She felt something strange, like the mirror was alive, like it wanted her attention. Shaking off the thought, she grabbed her bag and left for work. All day, she couldn't stop thinking about that smile. It was so real, so wrong. When she came home that evening, she avoided looking at the mirror. She told herself she wouldn't give it any more attention. But that night, she would learn that ignoring it wouldn't make it go away. In fact, it was just getting started. That night, Lena came home feeling uneasy. She tried to act normal, made herself dinner, watched some TV, scrolled on her phone, but in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop thinking about the mirror. It was like a shadow in her thoughts, waiting. When it was time for bed, she avoided looking in its direction. She brushed her teeth in the bathroom and kept her eyes down, refusing to glance at the other mirrors in the house. After finishing, she turned off the lights and walked into her bedroom. As soon as she stepped inside, her eyes, without meaning to, went to the antique mirror. It stood across the room, tall and silent, reflecting the dim glow of her bedside lamp. Her reflection was there, exactly where it should be. Lena sighed in relief. "See? Everything's fine," she whispered to herself. She sat on the edge of her bed and took a deep breath. Then, Something made her freeze. Her reflection raised its hand and waved. Lena stared in shock, her own hands resting on her lap. She hadn't moved. She knew she hadn't moved. Yet the figure in the mirror had clearly waved at her, a slow, casual motion, as if saying hello. Her body turned cold. She didn't even breathe for a second. Then she stood up quickly and stepped back, her eyes locked on the reflection. Now it was still, perfectly still, mimicking her posture. Lena's hands shook as she grabbed a sheet from the bed and threw it over the mirror. The fabric slid down the glass with a soft rustling sound, hiding the reflection from view. She backed away and sat on the bed, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it. What was that?" she whispered. She wanted to believe she was imagining things, but deep down she knew the truth. Something was wrong with the mirror. Very wrong. And soon, it would show her just how wrong. That night, Lena tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't let her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that wave, the reflection moving on its own. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't her imagination. It happened. She turned on her side, staring at the wall, trying not to think about the mirror. It was covered now. She had thrown a sheet over it, hiding that awful reflection. That should have been enough, right? But sometime after midnight, she woke up suddenly. At first, she didn't know why. The room was silent, the city sounds faint outside. Then she heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was soft, like fingernails on glass. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, she sat up in bed, her ears straining. The sound came again, tap, 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 a steady, slow rhythm. It was coming from the corner of the room, from the mirror. Lena swallowed hard, her heart pounding so loud she thought it would burst. The sheet was still there, covering the mirror, but something was tapping from the other side. "No," she whispered. Her voice shook. She didn't want to look. She didn't want to move. But the tapping grew louder, faster, almost impatient now. Tap, 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 tap. Lena slid out of bed, her bare feet cold against the floor. She took one trembling step, then another. Her hand reached for the lamp and turned it on. The warm light filled the room, chasing away the darkness. The sheet was on the floor. Lena froze, her breath caught in her throat. The mirror was uncovered, standing tall, its glass reflecting the dim glow. And there, inside it, was her reflection, smiling wide. She wasn't smiling. Her face was pale, terrified. But the reflection's lips curled into a grin, teeth gleaming. Then the reflection raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. Slowly, deliberately. The sound of its nails scraping against the surface made Lena's stomach twist. She stumbled back, shaking her head. No, no. The tapping had stopped. But something much worse had begun. Lena's heart hammered in her chest as she stared at the mirror. Her reflection stood inside the glass, smiling wider than ever. It didn't look like her smile anymore. It was too sharp, too wrong. The corners of the mouth stretched higher than a human smile should. She stumbled backward, her breath coming in quick gasps. Stay there," she whispered, as if the thing in the mirror could hear her. Then it moved. The reflection placed both hands on the glass. Its fingers spread wide, nails scraping lightly, making that horrible sound that sent shivers through her bones. Lena froze in terror as cracks formed under its hands, thin spiderweb lines spreading across the surface of the mirror. "No," she screamed, backing away toward the door. She reached for the handle, but before she could turn it, crack! The sound was like a gunshot. Lena spun around just in time to see a large crack split the glass. The reflection didn't copy her anymore. It was moving on its own. It tilted its head slowly, its grin growing impossibly wide. Another loud crack, and a piece of glass fell to the floor. Then, a pale hand pushed through the opening. Fingers curled around the edge of the frame, and in the reflection, the thing began to pull itself out of the mirror. Its arms stretched unnaturally long, joints bending the wrong way. Lena couldn't breathe. She stumbled backward, pressing herself against the wall as the creature dragged itself out. Now its head emerged, hair falling forward, hiding its face for a moment, until it lifted its head and looked at her with black, empty eyes. The thing stood in her room now, fully outside the mirror, and it smiled the same awful smile. Lena whispered, This isn't real." The reflection took one slow step toward her and spoke for the first time. "I've been waiting," it said in her own voice, only deeper, twisted, wrong. Lena's back pressed hard against the wall as the thing, her reflection, stood just a few feet away. It looked exactly like her, but there was something horribly wrong in its face. The grin was stretched too wide, its eyes dark and hollow, yet filled with something alive, something hungry. "Stay away," Lena whispered, her voice trembling so hard the words barely formed. The reflection tilted its head, smiling even wider. "You can't stop me," it said, in her own voice, but deeper, twisted, like something broken trying to sound human. Lena lunged for the door, yanking at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. She pulled harder, panic choking her throat. The door didn't move an inch. It was like it was sealed shut. Behind her, soft footsteps. The sound of bare feet against the wooden floor. Slow, deliberate. She turned just in time to see the reflection standing inches from her, smiling that endless smile. Before she could scream, it grabbed her wrists with an iron grip and slammed her against the mirror frame. The cold glass pressed against her back. "No, let me go," she cried, kicking and twisting, but the reflection was strong, too strong. Then, the glass behind her began to ripple like water. Her stomach dropped in terror as the surface moved, pulling at her body. The reflection shoved her harder, forcing her into the mirror. "No, please." Lena screamed as her arms disappeared into the glass, then her body twisting as she was dragged inside. And then silence. The room was calm again. The broken pieces of glass were gone. The mirrors stood perfect, smooth, unbroken. Lena's reflection looked out from the glass, but it wasn't Lena anymore. Inside, the real Lena pounded on the other side, screaming, her face pale with terror. But no one could hear her. Outside, the reflection, now real, turned to the room and smiled. It touched its face gently, whispering, finally, free. The next morning, Lena's neighbors saw her leaving for work, smiling like nothing had happened. But in the mirror, the real Lena still screams. And now, the reflection always smiles first. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a scare. And remember, watch till the very end, because the next horror might be watching you.